I'm State Representative Mark Gillen, and I want to welcome you to this legislative report. Today, we are at Buck Hollow Farms. We're going to take a little bit of a closer look at llamas. What are they about? What are some of their distinctives? Learn about some of the llama products that are in front of us here. I have with me Carol Ray. Carol, thank you very much for acting as our hostess today on your farm. And before we get into some of the llama products, could you tell us some of the do's and don'ts on this farm? Llamas obviously have their preferences. Maybe they like cameras, maybe they don't. Maybe they like state representatives, perhaps not. Could you tell us, as we walk around here, how we ought to conduct ourselves?
Sure. Well, llamas are naturally very, very curious, so they will come over probably and greet you with their nose. They have no upper teeth, so you don't have to be afraid of being bitten, but they might sniff your head or your nose or whatever. They are afraid of hands up at their face, so if you want to pet them on their neck or their shoulder. And I say they're not kickers by nature, but I always tell everyone they're large animals, so don't necessarily walk up behind them without letting them know you're there.
Exercise reasonable caution, approach them gently, and you don't want to present your hand up to their face. Is that what I'm understanding you're saying? Is this a paw to them?
Yes, and just greet them with your nose. And then once they realize that you're not going to eat them for dinner, you're probably safe to be able to pet them on their neck and everywhere else.
You've got some products in front of you here. You've got some awards. Tell us a little bit about your fiber.
This is just a selection of the raw fleece, which is straight off the animal, and you can see there's no lanolin in it. And actually, this has not been washed, so it's very clean. It was I did wash it on the animal before I showed the animal, and then I sheared it. But then this will go on to be made into roving, and then the roving will go on to be made into yarn for sweaters or woven products or whatever. By nature, llama fiber is, and camelid fiber in general, is naturally hypoallergenic. So people who are allergic to wool won't be allergic to camelid fiber.
Why should I prefer this fiber over another? What's the advantage, the efficacy of it, and what's some of the cost differences in general?
Well, probably preference-wise over others will be because it's not scratchy like wool, and it's naturally hypoallergenic. There's no lanolin in it. But I do blend some of this with about 20% wool, because what wool does is give this fiber memory. And this is a wonderful fiber to be made into things that drape if you want to do 100% product. And it's very, very warm. It's a hollow, within the hair or fiber, it's hollow, so that makes it a natural insulator. So it's very unlikely that you would find a 100% llama or alpaca sweater, because they're extremely warm. I usually do vests and things that don't cover my whole body.
Besides the obvious color differences between the fiber, amongst the raw fibers that you have displayed here, what advantage is there, one at this end of the table versus another? And how did these particular fibers win prizes?
Well, this one some of these probably weren't shown.
Okay.
But they're pretty much all the same. I mean, this one has, if you look at it, you might see there's a little more luster in it, and that's very desirable. This one doesn't have quite as much luster, but it is a unique color. So it's kind of boils down to people's preference. Pure white is seems to be a harder color for people to find that are hand spinners or even in yarn, and pure black. So as far as prizes goes, it just might be that these two weren't shown.
In just a minute, we're going to take a walk over and look at some of the animals, but a word about you personally, Carol. How did you get involved in this operation? Where did that passion rise from? You have a background with animals. Could you tell us a little bit about Carol's story?
Oh, okay. Well, I did learn never volunteer for anything that you don't think you're going to be committed to for the rest of your life.
Okay.
I started out, I volunteered. I helped a friend of mine at a festival, a llama and alpaca festival that was in Lebanon. And this was in 1996, I think. And because I have a horse background and I had a horse and I love horses, she just knew I would be fine with the animals and could help. And my job there was to get your picture taken with a llama. And in the course of that, I learned all about these animals, and we had just moved to the farm, and I'm like, wow, these guys will help us mow the lawn. And because we were mowing all these fields, we didn't have any animals yet, and to feed 2 for a year costs only $350. Mm-hmm. They go to the bathroom in a communal dung pile. So I went home and said to my husband, I have the perfect solution to our mowing problem, and it would be really good for the flower beds. So we started out with 4, and now we have close to 40. So I think there's a lesson in that, too.
You've been doing it for how many years now?
16 or 17 years.
16 or 17.
I know I volunteered in like 70, actually that might have been 75, so we started in 76.
Well,
no, I'm sorry, not 76, 96.
You've certainly whetted my appetite to spend time with the animals personally, so how about if we move over to the stables and experience some of those llamas firsthand?
That'd be great.
Carol, we just walked through what you've called the old milk room, and it's laden with ribbons and awards. It looks like it represents not only a lot of work, but a lot of achievement. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I do show. Fortunately, when we first started out, the stud that I bought was a very good stud. Not because I knew it, I just liked him, but it ended up that he was very, very good, and because of that, we've always been very successful in the show ring. And then subsequently, in years, we've been doing this a while, we've been very fortunate to do well, both in fleece and performance and in halter. And as a breeder, halter is important because they're judging the conformation and the structure of the animal. In fleece, to me, that's important because I do so much with the fleece, having it made into rovings and yarn and rugs. And then performance is the fun part, and that's really important to me too because I breed for disposition. And the performance classes are judging how you and the animal work as a team as you go through obstacles. So it's really fun to be able to do well in all 3 of those areas.
So to be that successful, you have to really care about these animals because chemistry does matter. And yes, as I listened to you a few minutes ago, you were calling them out by name. You've got dozens of animals, you know them all by name.
Yes, every animal is named and microchipped, and every animal is registered with the International Llama Registry. That's why I know them all. And actually, I have a new baby, and I'm going to have two more in the beginning of October.
Wonderful. Let's talk a little bit about the care of the animals. They're a large animal. They can get to 300 pounds or better, and then you've talked about babies at the other end of the spectrum. My daughters are visiting, and they're very interested in llamas, and I know at some point they'd like to have a llama. What is involved with the care of a llama?
Well, probably of any livestock. I always say, I'm a farmer, but I'm not a real farmer because the real farmer are the people that milk, get up at wee hours of the morning and milk and have no time off. The best thing about owning these guys is that we really can go away on vacation. They're very easy keepers. They don't care. I always say they don't care when they're fed. They're just grateful that they're fed. You don't always have to feed grain. I feed a yogurt cup of grain a day, and then they're on pasture all summer. And then in the winter, I feed a sour cream cup size of grain and 1 slab of hay. So, and some people don't feed grain at all. I do that because it's really my only indicator of whether they're off their feed or they're not feeling well. They tend to not get sick very much. If you don't show, I always have to have health certificates every time I show, but if you don't show and you own 2 llamas, your vet bill's probably going to be $50 a year. And that's even, if you do your own rabies and do your own CD&T, maybe nothing, but I do think it's a good idea to have a relationship with a vet.
It sounds like they're very hardy. Looks like a wonderful group. Shall I call them a herd? Is that an acceptable terminology for them? A few questions. With regard to llamas and their utility in working with other animals, I've read that they do well with sheep and they'll protect sheep. All right, I've got a few sheep. You introduce a llama to the sheep herd, how and what sort of protection can they afford you and from what?
They actually are good to guard sheep and goats and alpacas and any smaller livestock. I always make sure when I take an animal to a guard, as a guard to a farm, that they have a space for the llama in close proximity to their herd so they can get used to each other, maybe for a couple hours, maybe a day. It's more an issue for the host herd getting used to the llama than the llama getting used to its guardians. So after you do that, by nature, they have really good eyesight. They can spot coyotes, a stray dog, and what they do when they sense danger is they give what's a high-pitched alarm call, but it's kind of like between a horse's neigh and a donkey bray. And it's this loud noise that basically means, get the gun, there's something strange amidst us. That alarm call is to alert us. But then if they see like a dog or a coyote in the field, a good guard will round up the sheep and stand between them and the potential danger, but they also put their head down and they run over towards the danger. Generally, that's enough to get them, the coyote or stray dog, to leave. If not, they can actually stomp and kill a coyote. They've been known to do that. And yet they won't be aggressive towards your family dog or other animals that you have. That's how smart they are.
They're smart enough to realize what's real danger and what's a family pet. You've got a restraint system over here. Let's take a look at it for a minute, and perhaps you could explain how you utilize that.
Well, this is the old-time chute that I use. I actually sell a grooming chute and a vetting chute that's a lot easier to use than this. But people will use that to shear. We stand the llamas to shear, and it's easier sometimes if without them, walking back and forth. Sometimes I've sheared my llamas standing in the field, but since I do stuff with the fiber, I don't need it blowing to kingdom come. So we shear in it. We do some toenails that sometimes need to be done, maybe every couple months, depending on your soil. If it's real rocky, it wears down naturally. Shots. Some people give shots in the chute. You don't have to. Sometimes when my guys are eating, that's when I give them their shot. And grooming. It's something that's necessary to have, but yet you don't have to use it a lot.
The first time they go into the chute, is there a strategy introducing them? Are they uncomfortable? They really understand you're using this to help them?
The chute that I sell is really open, and they do not like confined spaces. And so this one, sometimes there'll be more hesitation. But mine, when I have it in here, I've come out and they've been laying down in it the wrong way, but they feel real comfortable with it. But they're smart, and they don't. I don't know if they know that I'm helping them, but they trust. And once they trust you, they will go in a minivan or they'll go in the chute.
I briefly walked around the property, and the Commonwealth's #1 industry is agriculture. And I've driven by this place a number of times, and until I came back here and I see leather goods, I see finished products from the fiber. I'm learning a little bit more about the marketing you're doing of the chutes here, and I see an enormous benefit from operations like this one to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I think it has an extraordinarily good economic impact, even in the southern end of our district here. We have the northern end, which is proximal to Reading. So I'm delighted to learn more about what you're doing with llamas and the benefits to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And if we can, let's take a walk and mix it up with some of your friends out there.
Okay, let's do that.
Carol, you're going to have an open barn out here. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Because I'm sure others would enjoy the exposure that we're experiencing right now with these llamas.
Yes, my open barn is October 12th and 13th. And we have it set up with vendors in the upper barn that are spinning and weaving and needle felting and showing all the different uses of the fiber. And then we do walk a llama, where kids get to walk a llama, and they actually get one of the ribbons. For all the extra ribbons I have, I give to the kids for walking a llama. And sometimes, I'm not sure if this year the woman, she does cart driving with the llamas. So hopefully she'll be able to come do cart driving with her llamas. And then we do educational tours, and people can see the products that other people sell.
And the dates and the times of that, again, are?
October 12th and 13th. Saturday it's 10 to 5 and Sunday it's 12 to 5.
Okay, wonderful. We'll look to
So.
see you at that. Obviously, these are very loving, kind, gentle animals. They like the attention, some more than others. Tell us about some of the differences between these animals. We've got someone parked right here and others, so just come up and sniff and investigate.
Yeah, by nature they're very stoic and they tend to be a little shy, but I always say they kind of have the disposition of a cat. But then there's EB and some others that act like dogs and just they want to be interacting with us, but they're fine if they don't. And that's how you know kind of your animal that's going to be a good guard and ones that maybe you want to take to nursing homes. So EB here, she's been to many schools and nursing homes because she doesn't mind all this touching and carrying on. And then I have other ones that are a little more shy, and they would just as soon be in the pasture guarding than out and about with people.
All of them have names except for one, and the public's going to have an opportunity to name that animal.
Yes. I have a baby that was born about a month ago, and his mom is Anime, and the sire is Mr. President. And all Mr. President's babies I like to name after presidents or first ladies. I don't have to, but I'm going to have a Name the Cria contest, and a Cria is a baby llama.
Wonderful. Now, there's the saying, boys will be boys. How about male llamas? Some distinctives with them, cautionary notes?
I have 6 studs, breeding studs on the farm, and I keep all of them in separate pastures away from the females for obvious reasons. But generally, male llamas, whether they're gelded or intact, make very good PR animals. I do a lot of my parades or even nursing homes with my males because, one, they're not pregnant and cranky, or and I don't want to risk losing a baby, stressing them too much.
Of course.
But it's not like horses with stallions and mares. I mean, these guys, your male llamas are as people-oriented as the females. So that's very cool.
We're in a very confined area. For some animals, that wouldn't be recommended. For these animals, they seem to be getting along well. How long would we want this situation to exist, and do they prefer being out in the pasture?
Well, they love the pasture. In the summertime, they spend most of the time in the barn with the fans and out of the bugs. And then at night, they go out into the pasture. And then in the winter, they spend almost 24/7 outside in the cool or even in the cold weather. As far as being confined, I mean, they get along really well with each other. If they are annoyed, they leave. They get out of whatever annoying them most of the time. And they're very social animals. It's not a marketing thing that you have to have 2. They're very social animals, unless they're guarding, and they can bond with the sheep.
How often are we shearing? And I notice it looks like some, at least relatively recently, have lost their coats. And what's the reaction to the process of having that fleece removed?
They are sheared once a year, in the spring usually, and you can see, at least with Evie here, she's nudie cut. A lot of them we just shear the barrels, that's the prime fleece for yarn, but the rest of this is great for rugs and outer garments and other things. To shear them, we stand. We could probably just get a pair of Fisker scissors right now and start shearing her. It's not hard to shear your own llama. You don't have to have a professional do it, you can, but you don't have to. I've had newcomers, I used to teach an adult education class on camelids, and one of the things they would do is they'd come out and shear a llama. Anime, should I move you out of the way?
I think she likes the cameras, as a matter
She
of fact.
is a camera hog. She's so...
Yeah, they seem to be enjoying the moment out here. You've got over 100 acres, but maybe 30 or 40 of it in pasture and harvest area for the animals. If someone had an individual animal, and I guess that wouldn't be a good idea because they like being around one another, so you have 2 animals, how much space does somebody need if they're willing to put the time into them?
Well, I always say, well, 2 to 3 llamas will fit on an acre, fine.
Okay.
People can put more on, but I always say, what do you want that acre to look like? You know, if you want it to be green, have 2. If you're going to cram, you know, 3 or 4 on, then make sure you're going to have to feed hay for them. But they're fine. They just need a place to graze. They spend 8 hours a day grazing, 8 hours chewing their cud, and 8 hours sleeping. What a life. No stress.
And they're browsers. They just don't respond positively to the green grass. They can get into the brush a little bit, but you don't want too much of that because their coat has to be protected.
Yeah, I don't let them browse too much in bad things because I have yarn made. But yeah, they'll eat poison ivy, they'll eat multifloral rose, they'll eat trees. You do have to kind of protect your trees from them. I just say that's nature pruning the trees for us.
A final question in here before we move into the sale area. People seem to commingle llamas with alpacas. They're cousins. What are some of the differences?
The llamas are bigger. The alpacas traditionally have always been just fleece producing animals, and the llamas have always been your workhorse, pulling carts, carrying goods to town, carrying the kids to town on their backs. But now through fine breeding, and you've seen some of my fleece, these guys have been great fleece producers too. And that's it. I mean, they're vetted the same. Their care is pretty much the same. You can manhandle the alpacas a little easier if they don't want to go in the trailer. You pick them up and put them in, or drag them in. But these guys you have to outsmart sometimes because they're as big as we are. But they're very. The neatest thing about these guys is they have a spirit, a willing spirit to please.
I like the sound of that. How about if we take a walk over to the store for a few minutes?
Sure.
Carol, we've spent some time with these delightful animals. We've experienced their fleece, and now this is the culmination of some of the end products from llama fiber. Can you tell us a little bit about what you have here, the A to Z, from coming off the animal to some of these finished products as varied as carpet and vests and mittens?
Okay, yes. You saw down in the beginning of the show the raw fleece, and right behind you is some roving. And that's the next step where all the fleece is lined up, and this is called roving. So now it's ready to be spun, either on a spinning wheel or machine spun. And then it's made into yarn. And this is just a couple of the samples of the yarn that I have made. This happens to be an 80-20 blend of top merino and 80% llama. This is the same. This is 100% llama. I only have a couple blends, but you can kind of see the difference of the thickness and I don't know what, lack of a better word, the bounce of it. So those, then from here, and I have a whole bunch of other colors in the other room, browns and blacks. Then you have the finished product, which this happens to be a vest that's made out of several of my skeins of yarn that a girlfriend knit for me. I'm learning to knit, but I don't think I have the confidence to do a whole vest yet. And then the fiber that's not as fine as what you saw, but might be the neck fiber or on their bellies or isn't as great, I have rugs made. And these are custom hand-woven rugs. And what's very neat about these is that sometimes they have tassels, sometimes they don't, but they're 100% reversible. And I have one that I've had in the house for 9 years, and it looks like it's brand new. So they're very versatile. All their fiber, whether it's the quality, the really good fleece, or if it's the not so good fleece, can be used for anything. The other, for those people who are fly fishermen, it makes great dubbing for tying dry flies. And so
all of these fibers are from the animals that we were just out in the yard with a few minutes ago.
Yep.
And so
all of this is
these are your animals.
all buck hollow
I could well
llamas.
put this to the test to see how long it lasts. I've got 5 children under 13 years of age.
You can.
Now, folks can come here and they can make purchases, but it's by appointment only. And then when you have your open barn, it would be another time
Yes.
to
yes.
see you here.
Yes, and my appointment, you could go on my website, which is carol@buckhollowllamas.com, and make an appointment or call. And I'll be happy to be here when you're here.
Now, folks have to realize they're not coming to the dollar store. There's a lot of investment in
Correct.
this. And as you already articulated, it's going to last an extraordinarily long time, and the utility and the warmth of it is superior.
Yes, and with all the skeins of yarn, they get a picture of the animal who donated their fiber for it, and they get a little story or a history about the animal. So it's kind of like putting a name to the fiber.
So you're going to actually get the name of the animal and a picture of, is there an autograph or a hoof print on here?
Well, actually, what some people have done, we've done a thing where people make their garment and then they come out and get their picture taken with the animal, and as a gift, they'll include that in if they're giving it as a gift. So you can get your picture taken with the llama who donated their fiber.
So it really personalizes it.
It really does.
And to have folks come out here and experience the animals, I'm sure is something they'll never forget.
It's fun.
Well, let's head back out into the barn area, and we'll say goodbye to some of those wonderful animals. And thank you very much for showing us around your store.
Sure. Thank you.
Carol, you said you had 40 llamas, but I've looked up in this direction and I see the 41st llama. Tell us a little bit about how this piece of metal ended up here.
This is Rusty, and we joke around and say that his dam was Iron Maiden and his sire was scrap metal. We actually got him from a farm that was dispersing their herd, and they called us and asked us if we wanted to purchase Rusty. And he is made out of all recycled farm equipment by an artist in Indiana. And he's the lowest maintenance animal we have. We don't have to feed him, and we don't have to groom him, and we don't have to scoop his poop.
Once again, you've got an open barn event coming up. Could you reaffirm when that is and the time of that?
Yes, the open barn is October 12th and 13th from Saturday 10 to 5 and Sunday 12 to 5. And we can learn all about llamas and their care and their products.
How often have you done this, and how many folks do you expect to come out for it?
Oh, I think this is maybe our 10th or 12th year. And it varies from, depending on the weather, but we get a couple hundred people and families.
Carol, you have been very generous with your time. My family's thoroughly enjoyed the visit here, and Buck Hollow Llamas is definitely one spot in our heart, and we've learned enough about llamas that I would actually consider getting a llama for my own children.
I could hook you up.
You could arrange that.
I could arrange it.
Well, we'll look forward to that event and the naming of the baby llama, who's just a few weeks old, and it is a male.
Yes, it is a male.
Okay.
And we'll have papers that people can fill out to put in their name for Name That Llama.
Name that llama. All right. And you know all of the names of the llamas, and do you have to approve of this name, or is
Well, we'll get quite a few, so we'll probably have to decide on the winner.
right,
we're not going to pick them out of a hat.
Okay, this is the appropriate name. Well, thank you again for having me here.
Thank you.
I'm State Representative Mark Gillen, and this is all the time that we have for Legislative Report. If you have any questions, we encourage you to contact our legislative offices, and that contact information will appear on the screen in just a few moments.